Have you ever wanted a little of that terrestrial radio flair to your podcast? Well, you're in luck today. I joined the Manchild Show with Boy Green of the Score 1260 in Syracuse. You've heard Gavin with them. Now I'm taking my turn right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And on this bonus episode of Locked On Knicks, that's right, we are just filling your feed up with all kinds of episodes. I think this is number 7 or 8 this week. It's busy when it's Eastern Conference Finals season, as it turns out. I got asked to come on the Manchild Show with Boy Green of the Score 1260 in Syracuse. That might sound familiar because Gavin has actually done a couple spots with these guys, which we've put on the channel before. And I got asked to come talk to them too. So I said, hey, why not? I love an opportunity to talk Knicks with someone new. It was very fun, very interesting discussion, hearing their point of view from the more standard sports talk radio point of view versus how we approach it here on Locked On Knicks. Just hearing what they wanted to hear about, talking about Game 5, talking about outlook for Game 6, all that kind of good stuff. So there's lots of good discussion in here. So we're going to get into that in just a moment. But first, I want to thank you all for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. So let's get right into it. Talking with the Manchild Show with Boy Green right now.
As the Knicks have advanced another game here now, Alex, for the Knicks. They survived. They got a win in the Garden. And now I think the pressure shifts a little bit to the Pacers. Give me your thoughts. Has the pressure shifted, or are the Knicks still in the pressure cooker right now?
I mean, I think it absolutely has shifted. If you're in a position, well, so first thing to consider, Pacers have not faced a Game 6 yet this postseason.
Good point.
So that's one thing to consider. Thing two, the Knicks are 6-2 on the road this postseason. So, I mean, they've certainly taken care of business better on the road than they have at the Garden, unfortunately. So maybe that creates more worry for Game 7 than anything, if it should happen. But I think the pressure is on them. When you're in a closeout scenario, especially we're talking about it for a moment before the show, but Halliburton fading in the way that he did in this game where he could have closed things out, a little bizarre. I can't quite wrap my head around how he had that sort of game after the game that he had in Game 4, and just seemed completely out of it. I think some of it had to do with how the Knicks defended him. I think the Knicks defense, they embraced switching a little more. They let guys kind of own their matchups a little bit and just defend the Pacers on an island, and the Pacers just seemed a little less interested in getting multiple off-ball actions going. It felt very different from the first 4 games of the series, and yet the Knicks also figured some stuff out on offense. It's kind of on the Pacers now to adjust to that, a Knicks offense where Jalen Brunson is not bringing the ball down the court, where they're not pressing him the entire length of the court and getting to tire him out that way. I think they really figured some stuff out, which is good. And props to Tibbs too. I mean, I'm not always the easiest on him, but I thought he pushed all the right buttons as far as the rotation was concerned.
Oh, compliments for Tibbs. I like it.
getting guys like DeLon Wright, Landry Shamet in there. I mean, I thought they made a big difference in this game. So, lengthening the bench has made it so the guys can be more energetic throughout the game. The Knicks did a really good job of controlling pace. Brunson was going crazy in the game. And then, Cat has pretty much owned this whole series at this point from a scoring perspective. So, I think the onus kind of falls on the Pacers here. It's their job to close this out at this point. The Knicks, I don't want to say it's house money because obviously you lose, you're out. But, I mean, at this point, they can, I think, play a little looser and just say, hey, if we play our game and and it ends up working, like we might be able to push this thing to the 7th game.
Look, every team has weaknesses, right? I just want to talk to you. You mentioned Cat, and he's a must for the Knicks, and he's an important piece of this puzzle. But there have been some real weird things going on with Karl-Anthony Towns. We were talking about it on the radio show this morning. These defensive lapses where he comes out on the perimeter and does silly stuff, or shoves a guy in the back and then goes, "What was that?" I mean, what do you mean, what was it? It's called a tackle, which is known as a foul in the world of the NBA. Give me your thoughts about Karl-Anthony Towns and your feelings about him. He's pretty new to the Knicks, so I want to give him a little bit of a wide berth here. But at the same token, he's one of the 2 superstars, and the Knicks need him to be, a high IQ guy. We already have a bunch of those guys on this team. Jalen Brunson maybe at the front of that pack. Can Towns be that guy, or is he always just going to be this aloof guy who picks up nonsensical fouls? It didn't cost the Knicks last night, but it could have. It could have.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things you just have to. I mean, even when Cat got traded to the Knicks, I was talking to various Timberwolves people, just getting their impressions on him. And number one thing that anyone ever says when you talk about flaws with him is the fouls. And it's just I think he lacks a little bit of discipline in a way, in terms of, look, I've been on record on my show saying this, and I believe it wholeheartedly. I think that he has had probably the worst whistle of anyone I've seen in this playoff so far. And granted, I haven't watched every single second of every single game, but the amount of contact that he takes on the offensive end and doesn't get called, I think that he then takes that with him, and that sits in his head. And then he goes, well, if they can do that to me, then I can do that to them. Except for then he does it to someone he'll be on a switch, against a Neesmith or whatever, and then do the same thing. But of course, because he's the 7-footer and Neesmith is
immediate foul.
The big guy never gets the benefit of the doubt in that situation. I think he just, to your point, I don't know if it's IQ so much as just lack of being able to control his emotions to a degree.
Frustration fouls,
Frustration fouls. It's that he thinks the game will be officiated evenly, and the game just, it's not always kind to big men, especially when it comes to fouls. And I think that he needs to understand that. That said, he's 10 years in. I don't know if that's necessarily going away. 10 years into your NBA career, but I think you live with it as long as he doesn't foul himself out, which he's come damn close a few times. But as long as he doesn't foul himself out and he's giving you what he's giving you on offense, which is essentially an unguardable force of nature right now, and the offensive rebounding, the defensive rebounding, like everything else he's giving you, all on, a clearly bothering him left knee right now that's been bothering him for, I think, the better part of the second half of this season and the whole playoffs. You kind of just take it, I guess. It's like, that's just part of the Cat experience. And as long as he's giving you everything else that he gives you and can keep it just locked in enough with the fouls to not foul out of the game, you just kind of live with it.
Oh boy.
And here's the thing, Alex, and tell me if this is a fair thing to do. So last night, right, the Knicks win emphatically. This is probably the one game where there's no dramatics at the end of, don't worry about this. This is going to be coming back. And I look at the box score because, you sort of have takes during the game, and then you see the box score and you see if it reaffirms something. You're like, oh, that was sort of a sneaky thing in there. I see that OG Anunoby was 3 of 14 from the field. But I also saw that, again, ultimately he finished plus 15. But when I see the 3 of 14, I went like, oh, thank goodness. The Knicks won by a lot. They didn't need OG Anunoby, and he will be due in Game 6. Is that the way to look at her? Yikes. That was terrible offensively, and that the terrible offensively could continue potentially and leak into the next game.
I think OG's been a little inconsistent during the playoffs, and I think that's kind of just the experience you get with him. Like, it feels like he's either massively on or like massively off on offense, but the process is always pretty much the same with him, which at that point you just, to quote a terrible sports franchise, you just trust the process in that one, and hope that it pays off. I think like he's taking good threes. He ironically sometimes gets into a mode where you almost like the shots that you think are out of his wheelhouse end up being the best ones. Like, he's really, throughout the back half of this season, really mastered this like step back three that he's been able to pull off, which is great. And was not something that I previously thought was in his bag. So, I don't know. I'm not sounding any alarm bells. I do think he's due. I think that he's he's proven that he can swing a game. Like, I think that he's been one of the biggest bellwethers for the Knicks in terms of, like, if he scores 20 plus in a game, you could feel pretty good about their chances of winning that game, because you can pretty much guarantee now that you're going to get 20 plus out of Cat and out of Brunson, no matter what. I mean, the crazy stat last night that came up on the broadcast, I think, was Brunson and Cat are the first pair of teammates since Kobe and Shaq to have 20 plus each in the first 5 games of a conference finals.
Wow.
And only the third duo of all time to ever do that, along with, I think, Jerry West and Elgin Baylor and Kobe and Shaq, which is crazy company to be in.
Yeah.
So you've got those 1 and 2 options. It's kind of just on someone else any given game to step up as the third option. Now, whether that's generally, you're going to look and you're going to say it's got to be either Mikal or it's got to be OG. As long as you get decent production out of one of those 2 guys, I think your chances go up exponentially, because now also you're getting good production out of the bench. You're getting, if Josh Hart continues coming off the bench in his best moments, he's going to get you some key buckets on the inside. Deuce McBride has been shooting really well and playing pretty well overall throughout this whole postseason. So, I think OG, to get back to the original crux of this, I'm not worried about the shooting performance. I do think he's due. And I think that what he's doing sets him up for success. Like, he's playing within the flow of the offense. He's not hijacking, and he's not doing some of this. There was a little bit of worry for me early in this series where he seemed, I've always had like the smallest little worry about OG's sense of offensive self-worth since he got traded to the Knicks, which, like, when he got traded from the Raptors, there was a lot of reports out there that, like, he thought his role wasn't big enough with the Raptors and that he wanted to be more of a primary option on a team. And we've seen that he got that opportunity a little bit with Brunson out this year and seized it and did really well at the end of the regular season.
30-point games. And one of the things, I just interrupt you for a second here, Alex, I'll let you continue your thought, is remember when OG first came over, when they made that trade, the Knicks couldn't lose when he was in the lineup. And then he got hurt for a little bit, and then he started losing games. Then he came back and they started winning again. He seemed to be this little piece of cement, this little piece of moxie that the Knicks really needed. And we know he's a 3-and-D guy, just like Bridges, and that's what New York is hoping to get out of those 2 guys. But he's been an important guy for the Knicks, no doubt about it.
Yeah, he's always additive. I mean, you know that no matter what, you're going to get the defense regardless. And that's part of what made, like, the game 1 choke job so, like, hurt so bad, is that you could watch and you literally, it was just OG, like, shut his brain off in those final, like, 2 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
And that ultimately cost them the game, I feel like, because there were a number of defensive lapses where he just didn't come out to Nesmith on those threes. I always mix those 2 up. I don't know why.
Yeah, me too. It's the end.
It's the 2 end names. But yeah, it didn't come out to Nesmith on some of those ones he made. And, he's so key to what this team does on the defensive end, because you can either put him on a top offensive option on the other side, like a Siakam, or his defense off the ball is as elite as anybody in the NBA. So that's the other thing too, is even when he's not, like, making the shots on offense, that as long as he's locked in, you're going to get elite defense out of him for every minute he's on the floor. And that's always going to be additive no matter what.
All right, I'll be right back in with my appearance on the Manchild Show with Boy Green and get a little existential. It was kind of fun. A little discussion about, like, refereeing, which was kind of cool, and how to potentially fix refereeing for the better in the NBA, which was pretty neat. And then talk about confidence level going into Game 6 and beyond for the Knicks to potentially force a Game 7 in this series. But first, I wanted to let you all know about our friends over at FanDuel. And the NBA playoffs are in full swing. I don't know if you've heard. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And my favorite thing is always same-game parlays, particularly live same-game parlays. There's nothing like when a guy starts off a little slow. Let's say, Karl-Anthony Towns comes out and he only has, 2 points in the first quarter or whatever, and you as a fan, better. You look at that and you say, he's going to light it up in the third. I bet you anything he'll get at least 20 points in this game. And then you bet on that because the odds get way better. Combine that with, like, 10 plus rebounds for him, maybe had like 2+ assists, something like that. Suddenly you pick his stat line and boom, you get like a nice big payday at the end. Those are always my favorite. You can watch your team win and you can get rewarded a little bit for watching them win. So that's always good to do. But if you want to check it out for yourself, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets to make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
You've seen some of the comments. We're popping them up on the screen there. John threw up a good one there, and I'm going to kind of ask a question around that. And he says, hope they let him play the next game and it's not a million fouls called. What about the physical nature of this series? What have you seen so far from the officials? Do you like what you've seen? And does it play to either team's advantage or disadvantage if it's called a particular way? How do you think Game 6 will go down?
Yeah, I've not been the kindest to the officials during this series. And I mean, look, I acknowledge that, I try to approach things as objectively as I can, but I'm never going to fully be objective because I am a fan of the Knicks, and
of course
that's always going to show through a little bit. So I'm probably going to be a little biased one way or the other. But what I've noticed, and that maybe changed a little bit in Game 5, is that they were allowing it in some facets to be extremely physical. I mean, there was a number of times where if you go back and look at the plays, like Nesmith getting into Brunson's body, it's like, I don't know, is that fully clean every time or is it not?
So much contact.
Yeah, OG was getting, I think it was part of what was frustrating him a little bit early in the series. I thought he was getting a really bad whistle as well. I already mentioned, I think Cat's been getting one of the worst whistles in the NBA this whole postseason.
Yes.
In terms of like the amount of opportunities he's creating at the rim and the amount of contact he's absorbing, but not really selling, I guess. Like he's not selling the contact well enough, I guess. And I guess that's really the key here. I think that there was a certain mentality of let them play, but then also certain times where all of a sudden there would just be a real ticky-tack foul. And like the times when Brunson has gotten into foul trouble, I look at that and I go, yeah, I guess like by the letter of the law, that's a foul, but like, why are you calling that when you weren't calling things on the other side? I think there definitely needs to be more consistency. I'm curious who the ref is going to be, or the crew chief is going to be in the next game. Mm-hmm. I was honestly really surprised. I think it was Zarbo was on the game last night and
I think you're
called it completely differently than he called Game 1.
Yes.
Which was bizarre as well. So I don't know if the league is maybe talking to them and saying, hey, like, or the officials amongst themselves are saying, hey, maybe things are getting a little out of control with the physicality at this point, and we need to kind of reel these guys back in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm always going to approach it from the perspective of I like the Knicks and I'm going to notice things more there. But to me, it's felt something's just felt a little off to me in certain games in this series in terms of how the officiating goes one side to the other, what's a foul, what's not a foul. And I think it's been a little hard for the players to understand what's a foul and what's not a foul. And that probably applies to both sides of the equation. So,
see, Alex, if you listen to my radio show the last 15 to 20 years, I've been on the air for 24 years in Central New York. You'll know that I am an electronic strike zone fan in baseball. All right. And it makes me ill still to this day that baseball is still, tinkering. We're still testing. We've used it in the minors. I want a completely electronic strike zone because I don't like the judgment of the home plate umpire and how it changes at bats, which changes games. People don't see it because, it's just a strike or a ball. It makes a huge difference, a 2-1 count, a 3-1 count to a 1-2 count, an 0-2 count. It changes everything, which changes the game. I have argued in recent weeks, I've argued it for years, but I've brought it up in recent weeks in these playoffs, how the officials do tend to let players play a little bit more, but then you get lost in this haze of what's a foul and what's not. And it's just my belief, honestly, that referees, all of them, I'm not going to give one single guy credit, every single one of them are human beings who are not capable, in my opinion, of calling accurate basketball at the pro level because of the speed of the athletes and the athleticism, and you just can't be in the perfect position. It's almost an impossible task. I wish I had an electronic strike zone or a tennis cyclops for these guys. I don't. So is there any remedy? Because a lot of times, a lot of our fans who come in to watch NBA in the playoffs see that stuff. They see it can sometimes decide games, and they get frustrated. They say, what am I watching here? This is just about officials. It's not about the players. How do you answer that question? I know it's a big, big diatribe I gave you there. Sorry.
I was just say this goes well beyond just the Eastern Conference
It really
Finals.
does. does.
But,
it does.
um, yeah, I mean, I think it's a delicate balance, right? I think, just in the macro of refereeing in the NBA and how it's progressed, like, I appreciate that they've introduced coaches challenges. I think that's been big in terms of keeping the refs honest to a degree. Although then there's even been some times in this series where they show the replay 100 times and I go, okay, yeah, that should be overturned. And then it gets upheld and you go, well, what were they watching? I don't fully understand it. But I think one thing that they could do, and, the only thing here is that you risk the pace of the game just getting so bogged down at that point. But I do think that it's like a little too punitive with the way that they've structured the coaches challenges, where you get the first one and it doesn't cost you a timeout. But then, to my understanding, you do the second one and then it does cost you a timeout, even if it's successful. And it's like it doesn't make any sense to penalize, especially if you get it right. So it's like, hey, how dare you call us out for getting the wrong call? You get one less timeout now down the stretch of this game. I think ultimately maybe what has to happen, and I mean, they've sort of started working this in a little bit with where there's the reviews after shots are made or whatever, where they can go back and go, oh, they watched that shot from 2 minutes ago. It got called a 3, but in fact, the guy's foot was on the line. We're going to adjust the score live in game. We're seeing that start to come up. Maybe it's just, they have the teams in Secaucus that are watching the games all the time, that are constantly monitoring these feeds and monitoring what's going on in the games. Maybe you start allowing the replay office to initiate a stoppage in play remotely and say, hey, that was blatantly wrong. We have the angle to prove it. Like, here, fix this call, and make it more definitive and like bang, bang, like, and that's how you can kind of maybe only make that happen in the final 3 minutes of games or something. But again, then you risk, it's like the same thing as what's going on with like the Hack-a-Mitch stuff right now.
Yeah. Oh, that annoys me. Oh, that drives me crazy. Don't get me going down that road right now.
Yeah. I mean, it makes the product unenjoyable. So there's like a real balance there of how do you balance making sure that the calls are correct versus making sure that your entertainment product is entertaining. I don't envy the people that are going to make those decisions and ultimately try to find the answer to that, because I don't think there's anything that you can do that's an easy fix to that. Yeah. But I do think that like a little bit more oversight could be helpful, as long as they find ways to streamline it and not make it take sometimes there's a challenge on a call and it takes them 10 minutes to deliberate and it just completely kills the flow of the game. So I maybe there just needs to be some way that they can expedite that process a little bit.
I'll tell you what, I was more than golf clapping Stan Van Gundy last night, who I think was the one in the broadcast crew that was addressing the Hack-a-Mitch thing. And he said, fans don't want to see this. And I don't either. My partner and I have argued about this. And I've said, I don't care that it's Robinson. If it were the other way, I'd be screaming from the rooftops the exact same way, even though I'm a Knicks fan. It's bad for basketball. Bad for basketball. And I know college has changed that rule up a little bit to change it. Right? We don't have to go off on that, but I just got to get it off my chest because it drives me nuts.
That makes sense. Hey, learn how to hit a free throw. That's part of the basketball game too. But that's neither here nor there.
That's the answer, right? Learn how to hit a free throw. Right.
Okay. By the way, we got 150 plus people in the room. Appreciate it. We're streaming live in 3 different places. Make sure you guys subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel that is at MC Show Digital for all kinds of cool content just like this. If you have a question for our talented guest here, Alex Wolf, make sure you guys hit it up in the comment section. We can see it live here as we're streaming on this channel. So, guys, we're here for a few more minutes, so make sure you guys continue to send all of your commentary in. We'd love to highlight some of that during our conversation here. And now now we have Game 6 tomorrow night. Ultimately,
level of faith. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so that's really it. I want to start there at confidence level. Confidence level heading into Game 6. The Pacers win, it's over. The Knicks win, you push it to that Game 7, which would be back at the Mecca.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm doing my best to temper expectations, but I am daring to dream again. So at least my dreaming part of my brain has been reawakened again. It was definitely, obviously when you look at the numbers of teams that go down 3-1, 97 point something % of the time do not advance.
Right. Only 13 teams have overcome that in NBA playoff history.
Right. Enough to make you a little a little bit
Huh?
cautiously optimistic, right?
Right.
But that said, like, I mean, this is a team that's done a lot of historic comeback type stuff in this offseason, right? Like, actually, it's really funny. There's a very similar win percentage assigned to teams that have gone down 20 plus in a playoff game, typically have only won those games about 3% of the time. And yet the Knicks have done it 3 times in this
Yeah.
postseason.
Well, I mean, aren't we the only team that has come back from 20 points 3 times in playoffs in the history of the NBA?
That's
And
true.
the only team that blew a 20-point lead with less than
whatever.
I don't want to
5
relive
minutes
it, but
to
yeah,
go.
we all
14
know
point
that.
lead.
Game 1 of the series.
14-point
Ugh.
lead under 3 minutes to go.
Oh.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So it's a lot of firsts. A lot of firsts.
A lot of firsts. But yeah, I mean, like I cited it earlier, but like the Knicks 6-2, I believe, on the road in this postseason. And that they're a team that has played in elimination games before. They've played up in series, they've played down in series, they've done a little bit of everything these last 3 years. And obviously they're further than they've ever been at this point. And that who knows? I think they have as good a chance as any. I think that home court, at least for these two teams, has been almost meaningless throughout these playoffs. Both of them have been really good on the road. And that's shown through in this series. I mean, the Knicks took the first game in Indiana in this one and did it somewhat convincingly. I mean, it only ended up being a 6-point margin by the end, but I think that, they inspired about as much confidence as you could there. And this game 5, I think they found something in terms of ways to exploit the Pacers and ways to kind of neuter what they want to do on offense. And if they're able to keep that up, then maybe they can force a game 7. Then game 7, all bets are off. I mean, it's just whoever comes out and wants to win that game the most is going to win it. We saw that last year. The Pacers came out and like smoked them at the Garden in the first half. And maybe the Knicks could have come back in that game. Maybe they couldn't have, who knows, because Brunson broke his hand and it was just, it wasn't even worth entertaining in the second half at that point of last year's game 7. But yeah, I mean, confidence level wise, I don't know. I guess I'll call it a coin flip, 50-50. If they come out and look as good as they did in this game 5, they've got a really good shot of winning this game in Indiana and forcing a game 7. If they come out looking like they have in some of the other games in this series, like game 4, for example, definitely not as confident at that point. So I guess we'll see, but it's all going to, I think, hinge on what kind of energy they come out with early. And it honestly, Brunson making shots early has a huge ripple effect on how this team is able to play offense and get other players involved. So if he comes out shooting on fire like he did in game 5, I give them I think a really, really good chance of potentially winning that
Guys,
game.
last year I was in Pittsburgh when the Indiana Knicks, the back end of the Indiana Knicks series was going on. I think my son was graduating. I think it was graduation. I think.
Oh, okay.
I think it was all about graduation. And I went to a Frank Caliendo comedy show.
Sure.
All right. And
That
that was,
great.
at like 7:00 or something at night. And then I got out and we were late in the game 7, when all that crazy bad stuff happened. And it left such a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, man, come on. Like, that's got to flip next year. And then the Towns trade happens. And I don't know, man, I'm just still living in a sea of optimism. And even if they don't win this series, Alex, I'm still feeling like this is progress.
All right, this is the point where I'm going to cut this conversation off. It started, look, I'm not a superstitious guy. I'm only a little stitious. Shout out Michael Scott. But the conversation took a turn towards a little too much like off-season type stuff and talking about like, is this season a success and how would you approach the off-season and how would you structure a trade for blankety blank? I won't even say the name because it just seems weird to discuss at this particular juncture. So I'll tell you what, guys, I'm going to bank this one. If the Knicks don't ultimately win a championship, I'll put this out as a bonus episode. About 12 minutes that I had left in this conversation with these guys. Or if they win a championship or whatever, we'll just toss that last little bit away because it's forward-looking stuff, looking towards the offseason. I'm not ready to go there yet. It felt a little dirty to throw that in the episode. So we're gonna just let that one ride for now. I'm gonna keep that banked. Don't worry. And ultimately maybe I'll turn it into an episode, but for now we're gonna shelve that one and save it for later. But till next time, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. We'll be back obviously with a game recap of game 6, hopefully a victorious one. Cross your fingers, cross your toes, say a prayer, do the J.R. Smith 2013 3 celebration, whatever it is you got to do to get some good juju for the Knicks. Let's get the Knicks out of this game 6 and onto a game 7 on the Garden floor on Monday. We'll see what happens. We'll be here for you no matter what the outcome is on Locked On Knicks. Talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.